Tonight, breaking news as we come on the air. President Biden vows to retaliate after 3 American service members were killed in a drone strike in the Middle East. The attack raises new fears of a wider conflict. This marks the first U.S. fatalities from hostile fire following months of strikes stemming from the war in Gaza. 3 are dead after a drone struck outside their living quarters in Jordan. At least 30 injured, some reportedly with traumatic brain injuries. President Biden blames militant groups backed by Iran and is pledging to hold those responsible to account. The deadly attack comes as the U.S. tries to negotiate a temporary ceasefire in Gaza and the return of more than 100 Israeli hostages still held by Hamas. The CIA director now in Paris to personally oversee the talks. House Republicans lay out their case for impeaching the Secretary of Homeland Security, accusing Alejandro Mayorkas of violating U.S. law by allowing millions of migrants to illegally enter the U.S. President Biden changes course, now saying he'll shut down the border when necessary if Congress votes to give him that power. It comes as Texas officials defy the White House and threaten to put up more razor wire to keep migrants out, despite the Supreme Court's ruling. Trump and Biden shift their focus to the general election in what's being described as the longest presidential campaign ever, as Nikki Haley resists calls to drop out of the race. Climate protesters target the Mona Lisa, hurling soup at one of the world's most famous paintings. And America Strong tonight. A customer's simple question at a coffee shop and the unexpected response that changed 2 lives forever.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this Sunday. I'm Lindsay Davis. We begin with some cautionary words from President Biden, who says the U.S. shall respond after Iranian-backed militants killed 3 American service personnel and injured at least 30, all stationed in Jordan. They are the first American service members to die from hostile fire since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. The troops were there to support American forces in Syria and assist the military in Jordan. Their post is called Tower 22. Officials say it was hit by a one-way drone. Some of the wounded are being treated for serious shrapnel wounds. Others are being examined for traumatic brain injury. Since the Israel-Hamas war, Iranian-backed militants have repeatedly carried out strikes from Iraq, Syria, and notably Yemen, where the U.S. and its allies have intercepted dozens of missiles and drones. Iran's foreign minister told our Martha Raddatz just days ago that no one would benefit from a wider war. Tonight, the White House is walking a fine line between fighting back and risking a larger conflict. ABC senior White House correspondent Selina Wang leads us off.
Tonight, the first American troops killed by enemy fire since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. The White House blaming Iran-backed militants for the deadly drone attack on a U.S. base in Jordan, near the border with Syria. 3 Americans at Tower 22 base were killed and at least 30 were injured when the drone strike made it through the base's air defenses. The Pentagon says some of those injuries are serious, including shrapnel wounds and possible traumatic brain injuries. President Biden addressing the attack today at an event in South Carolina, vowing to hold those responsible accountable.
We had a tough day last night in the Middle East. We lost 3 brave souls, and we shall respond.
Iranian-backed militants have launched more than 150 attacks on U.S. forces in the region since October. The U.S. has retaliated several times with strikes of its own. Just this week, ABC's Martha Raddatz pressed the highest-ranking U.S. military officer on the administration's strategy.
What would you say to those people who are your critics who would say, look, they're not being tough enough on these militants. They're not being tough enough on Iran.
I would also ask, do they want a broader conflict? Do you want us in a full-scale war? And so we've got to be thoughtful about our approach in these areas, and we can't predict exactly how any one of these groups is going to respond. We don't want to go down a path of greater escalation that drives to a much broader conflict within the region.
That ever-present risk of military escalation. Selina Wang joins us now from the White House. Selina, now that American troops are dead, we're already seeing increased pressure on the Biden administration to respond.
Exactly, Lindsay. The pressure is growing. Republican lawmakers, including Mitch McConnell and House Speaker Mike Johnson, they're calling on the president to take stronger action to stop these attacks. Now, U.S. officials tell me tonight that they do expect a serious response from the Biden administration. But look, the president here is walking a very fine line. He's trying to deter these attacks from these Iranian-backed militant groups while also trying to prevent this conflict from spreading. Lindsay?
Selina from the White House. Thanks so much, Selina. Staying in the region now, ABC News has learned that U.S. negotiators are making significant progress on a deal to free some of the remaining hostages held by Hamas. They include 6 Americans. But the IDF is not letting up, releasing these images of what it says are strikes on Hamas targets. ABC's Matt Gutman has the latest from Israel.
Tonight, that potential breakthrough in ceasefire negotiations with CIA Director William Burns in Paris today, meeting with top-level officials from Israel, Egypt, and Qatar.
Every level, from the president right on down. We're doing everything we can to bring these moms and dads, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters back home to their families.
U.S. and Israeli sources say the agreement would give Hamas a 2-month ceasefire in exchange for more than 100 hostages still held in Gaza. It would unfold in several stages, with women, the elderly, and wounded released first. Israel would also release Palestinian prisoners from its jails and allow more aid into Gaza. The conflict has killed about 26,000 Palestinians, with tens of thousands wounded, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. About 100 living hostages are believed still held in Gaza, kidnapped during Hamas's October 7th rampage. Taking part in that onslaught, Israel claims, were at least a dozen employees of the largest UN aid agency in Gaza. Known by its acronym, UNRWA, an Israeli official telling ABC News that a number of the group's employees were captured by Israel and others spotted on the many videos live-streamed by Palestinians the day of the attack. The UN Secretary General said Saturday 9 of the accused employees have been fired, 1 is dead, and the identity of the others undetermined. And with at least 10 countries, including the U.S., suspending contributions to the agency, officials say the lack of funds could have a significant humanitarian impact.
This measure is extremely dangerous, and it is our hope that it will be reversed.
There's some real momentum behind these ceasefire talks, Lindsay. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been under enormous domestic pressure to bring those hostages home. And tonight, his office calling those talks constructive and saying that the significant gaps that exist could be hammered out in talks later this week. Lindsay.
Matt, thank you. Here at home, House Republicans have taken a significant step forward in doing something that has not been done in nearly 150 years. This week, members of the Homeland Security Committee are expected to vote on articles of impeachment against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas over his handling of the border. Details now from ABC's Jay O'Brien.
Tonight, the Republican-led House Homeland Security Committee releasing articles of impeachment against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, teeing up the first impeachment of a cabinet secretary in nearly 150 years. The committee accusing Mayorkas of violating his oath of office by willfully and systemically refusing to comply with federal immigration laws and enact widespread detention of migrants amid the ongoing crisis at the southern border.
There has been a willful and refusal to comply with the law and an abuse of power.
In a statement, the Department of Homeland Security calling the impeachment a political stunt and evidence-free, adding the standard set by Republicans would mean, quote, Congress should have impeached every DHS secretary since the department was founded. House Speaker Mike Johnson vowing to hold a Mayorkas impeachment vote in that GOP-controlled chamber as soon as possible. Only the second vote to impeach a cabinet secretary in American history. Meantime, in the Senate, lawmakers putting the finishing touches on a landmark immigration deal after months of bipartisan negotiations.
This bill could be ready to be on the floor of the United States Senate next week.
Sources familiar with the talks telling ABC News the deal gives the Department of Homeland Security the authority to shut down the border if migrant crossings or encounters surge beyond Border Patrol's capacity. It would also speed up the processing of asylum claims. But former President Trump pressuring Republicans not to compromise.
There is zero chance I will support this horrible open borders betrayal of America.
President Biden telling lawmakers if they send him a bipartisan immigration deal, he'll sign it and use it.
Congress needs to get it done.
Back to Secretary Mayorkas. If he is impeached, that would trigger a trial in the Democrat-controlled Senate where he would almost certainly be acquitted. The Senate requires a 2/3 majority vote to convict and remove anyone who has been impeached. Lindsay, that is a tall order. Think of it this way. The only other time in American history that a cabinet secretary has been impeached, Ulysses S. Grant's Secretary of War in the 1870s, he was acquitted in the Senate because there weren't enough votes to convict. Lindsay?
So potentially unprecedented territory here. Jay, thank you. Jacqueline Lee joins us now from the border in California. Jacqueline, we heard from Jay that if that bill passed, President Biden would shut the border down. What are you learning about the latest apprehensions as President Biden and Texas Governor Greg Abbott remain locked in this bitter dispute?
Lindsay, we are seeing a sharp decline in total apprehensions. Now, the latest data shows that there are about 4,300 apprehensions per day. Compare that to last month, which had nearly 11,000 apprehensions per day, which, by the way, holds a record for the most apprehensions in a month. Border crossings have typically declined immediately after the holiday season, only to rebound around the spring. In Texas, State Attorney General Ken Paxton denying federal Border Patrol agents unrestricted access to Shelby Park, stating they will not allow it to turn into an unofficial port of entry. This after the state seized control of the park to arrest migrants, and a Supreme Court ruling stating those federal agents can cut razor wire installed by the Texas National Guard along the Rio Grande. Now, this continues to be a years-long battle between the federal government and the state of Texas as the state continues to fly and bus thousands of migrants to democratically run cities across the country. Lindsay.
Jacqueline, thank you. The battle over the border is likely to be a major issue in November in what could be a Biden-Trump rematch. The longtime rivals are already ramping up their attacks on each other ahead of next month's South Carolina primary. The state's former governor, Nikki Haley, is also going after Trump this weekend, calling him unhinged as she fights to find traction. Here's ABC's Mary Alice Parks.
Tonight, she's the underdog, but still fighting.
He's won 32 delegates out of 1,215, and I've won 17 delegates. This is far from over.
Nikki Haley on her home turf of South Carolina tonight, criticizing Donald Trump for skipping out on debates.
And I think that we need to continue to tell him that he's got to talk to the American people. Because you can't hide behind a camera. You can't hide behind the teleprompter at his rallies. He really needs to come face to face. Man up, Donald. I know you can do it.
Haley focused on proving herself once again in the state she once governed. But Trump's lead there in the polls still double digits, according to 538, coming in at 63% compared to Haley's 29.
If he's the candidate, I will likely vote for him, but I certainly would prefer probably Nikki Haley.
President Biden trying to build momentum in South Carolina, too, aiming to boost the black vote.
And you push us toward a more perfect union. You really do.
In Las Vegas Saturday, Trump arguing he sees the race as good as done.
Here it's time to finish this primary and get going at defeating.
And Lindsay, Haley also said today that she trusts that jury that rendered that staggering verdict ordering Trump to pay E. Jean Carroll $83 million for defaming her after she accused him of sexual abuse. And this week we are also watching out for a possible decision from the judge that's overseeing that New York civil fraud case against Trump. He could fine Trump up to $370 million in that case. Lindsay?
Multiple court cases on the line there. Mary Alice, thank you. Winter is absolutely relentless for parts of the Northeast. 9 million Americans are under winter alerts tonight, with up to 10 inches of snow possible north of New York City. Boston bracing for a snowy morning commute. Let's go right to ABC meteorologist Samara Theodore. Samara, time this all out for us.
Well, Lindsay, this wintry weather will impact those Monday morning commuters headed to work in the Northeast. All right, so winter weather advisories have been issued from Pennsylvania and upstate New York to New England. The light pink shading that you're seeing, that's where we can see the heftier totals. The steadier snow will fall tonight through tomorrow morning, with this looking like mainly a rain event along I-95, and the last of the snow showers will exit through Boston in the morning. Totals struggle, though, to accumulate as grounds have been so warm lately, but will generally range from 1 to 6 inches, with a bullseye in the Catskills potentially getting 10 inches of snow. Lindsay?
All right, Samara, thank you. Bizarre and brazen crime in Wichita, Kansas. A bronze statue of baseball legend Jackie Robinson disappeared from a park in the city. Thieves cut the 100-pound statue from its base. The sculpture of the man who broke baseball's color barrier holds a special place in the community. Details from ABC's Melissa Adan.
Tonight, authorities are searching for 2 suspects accused of stealing a life-size bronze statue of baseball icon Jackie Robinson in Wichita, Kansas. The statue cut at the ankles, leaving only the feet behind.
This should upset all of us. What troubles me even more is that the theft occurred just before the beginning of February, which marks the start of Black History Month.
Police say this surveillance video shows the suspects cutting down the statue, then loading it onto the bed of a pickup truck.
If you've got that statue, bring it here today, now.
Robinson, the first black player in Major League Baseball for the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1947. Nonprofit League 42, named after Robinson's jersey number, installed the sculpture in 2021 in McAdams Park, where hundreds of kids play in the Little League.
This is a sacred place. This is a place where we honor a man who broke down barriers.
Lindsay, authorities are now offering a $7,500 reward for any tips. Lindsay.
Melissa, thank you. Still much more ahead on World News Tonight this Sunday. Protesters attack the Mona Lisa and why a woman risked her life by clinging to a speeding car. Next tonight, dramatic and frightening video of a woman who was desperate to stop thieves who'd stolen her French bulldog. A bystander filmed Allie Zacharias holding on to the roof of her car as it sped through downtown Los Angeles. The thieves finally swerved and sent Zacharias to the ground. They got away with her dog named Onyx. Police in Chicago are seeking the public's help in finding the gunman who shot and killed 2 high school students on Friday. Robert Boston and Montero Williams had just left their charter school in downtown Chicago when several masked gunmen opened fire. Witnesses say some got away by car, others ran off. Police say they're combing through security camera footage in the search for clues. And when we come back, a skier's nightmare. She was stuck on a gondola all night long in freezing temperatures. To the index now, and a harrowing incident at a ski resort in Nevada. The snowboarder tells reporters that she was trapped for more than 15 hours in a gondola above the slopes without her cell phone. Temperatures dipped into the 20s. A spokesperson for the resort says staff members found her when they started the lift for the day. And next, an attack on one of the world's most famous paintings. 2 protesters tossed soup at the Mona Lisa in Paris. The painting is protected by bulletproof glass, and there was no damage. Authorities say the 2 are members of an environmental group and were arrested right away. When we come back, America Strong, the simple question that prompted a remarkable answer. Finally, a simple question and the life-saving answer. George Johnson's practically a staple at this neighborhood sandwich shop in South Philadelphia.
He comes in every day for coffee.
Nearly every day for more than a decade, Carolyn DeFabrizio has been serving him up at Steak 'em Up. Then one day proved to be anything but routine.
I came in like I usually do for my coffee.
After handing her a carton of creamer, George noticed Carolyn wasn't sporting her usual smile.
I gave it to her and I said, "Is there anything else I can get you?"
Carolyn's answer came as a surprise.
Yeah, if you got an extra kidney, I'll take it.
Little did George know, Carolyn had stage 5 kidney failure, which had reached the point where she required daily at-home dialysis. Little did she know when she answered that simple question that George, her regular customer, would respond so irregularly.
So I said, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" About a week later, I went and called and got tested and everything came back that I'm a match.
Out of the world full of people, I'm still floored.
The surgery in late December was a success.
Do not give up hope because God is good and He will be there.
What a blessing. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir America's most watched newscast.